Hi there. It is time for another thought for the day. And this once again, comes from Voluntary Simplicity by Duane Elgin. And we are reading from page 117. And we're going to call this Death as an Ally. Death is an important ally for appreciating life. I'm not referring to a morbid preoccupation with death. Rather, I mean the felt awareness of our finitude as physical beings, an honest recognition of the short time we have to love and to learn on this earth. The knowledge that our bodies will inevitably die burns through our attachments to the dignified madness of our socially constructed existence. Death is a friend that helps us to release our clinging to social position and material possessions as a source of ultimate security and meaning. No security and meaning in those things. An awareness of death forces us to confront the purpose and meaning of our existence here and now. The way in which death can be an uncompromising friend to bring us back to the reality of life is revealed in the changing attitudes toward life of people who've had a near-death experience. A common sentiment expressed by many near-death survivors is a decreased emphasis on money and material things and a heightened appreciation for nature and loving other people. Dr. Kenneth Ring, a researcher of near-death experiences, quotes one woman survivor who said, after her experience, quote, "I thoroughly enjoy life, every day of it. As far as dying, if I were to die tomorrow, that wouldn't bother me. But there is more of a thrill to life each day of living. There is an inner feeling that life is terrific, great, fantastic, even on down days." End quote. Dr. Ring also quotes a young man who had a near-death experience after having been involved in a serious automobile accident. As a result, the young man found that he had developed an awareness that something more was going on in life than just the physical part of it. It was just a total awareness of not the material and how much we can buy in the way of cars and stuff, or food, or anything. There's more than just consuming life, he said. There's a point where you have to give to it. And that's really important. End quote. Gandhi once said, just as one must learn the art of killing in the training for violence, so one must learn the art of dying in the training for nonviolence. If we are to lead nonviolent and loving lives, then we can begin by coming to terms with our own death. An appreciation that we must die awakens us from our social sleep to the reality of our situation. Death is an unyielding partner in life, an inescapable certainty to push against as we sort out the significant from the trivial in our daily lives. Consider the words of Nadine Stair of Louisville, Kentucky, who was 85 years old when she wrote the following, entitled, "If I Had My Life to Live Over." And Nadine says, "I'd like to make more mistakes next time. I'd relax. I would limber up. I would be sillier than I have been this trip. I would take fewer things seriously. I would take more chances. I would climb more mountains and swim more rivers. I would eat more ice cream and less beans. I would perhaps have more actual troubles, but I'd have fewer imaginary ones. You see, I'm one of those people who live sensibly and sanely hour after hour, day after day. Oh, I've had my moments, and if I had to do it over again, I'd have more of them. In fact, I'd try to have nothing else. Just moments, one after another, instead of living so many years ahead of each day. I've been one of those persons who never goes anywhere without a thermometer, a hot water bottle, a raincoat, and a parachute. If I had to do it over again, I would travel lighter. If I had to live my life over, I would start barefoot earlier in the spring and stay that way later in the fall. I would go to more dances. I would ride more merry-go-rounds. And I would pick more daisies. End quote. Finally, consider the wisdom from a now largely forgotten book written in the United States in 1877. In its closing pages, The Royal Path of Life, that's the name of the book, The Royal Path of Life, describes a perspective on life that comes from an appreciation of death. Although written in a style of gracious eloquence that comes from an earlier era, it speaks plainly, even today. He says, "No sex is spared, no age exempt. The majestic and courtly roads which monarchs pass over, the way that the men of letters tread, the path that the warrior traverses, the short and simple path of the poor, all lead to the same place. They all terminate, however varied their routes, in that one enormous house which is appointed for all living. No matter what station of honor we hold, we are all subject to death." It's true. A few friends will go and bury us. Affection will rear a stone and plant a few flowers over our grave. In a brief period, the little hillock will be smoothed down and the stone will fall, and neither friend nor stranger will be concerned to ask which one of the millions of forgotten people on the earth was buried there. Every vestige that we have ever lived upon the earth will have vanished away. All the little memorials of our remembrance, that lock of hair encased in gold, or that portrait that hung in our dwelling, they will cease to have the slightest interest to any living being. We need but look into the cemetery and see the 10,000 upturned faces, 10,000 breathless bosoms. There was a time when fire flashed through those vacant orbs, when warm ambitions, hopes, joys, and the loving life pushed in those bosoms. Dreams of fame and power once haunted those empty skulls. A proper view of death may be useful to abate most of the irregular passions. And so thus, for instance, we may see what avarice comes into the coffin of the miser. This is the man who could never be satisfied with riches. But see now, a few boards enclose him, and a few square inches contain him. Approach the tomb of the proud man, and see the haughty countenance dreadfully disfigured, and the tongue that spoke the most lofty things condemned to eternal silence. Behold the consequences of intemperance in the tomb of a glutton. See his appetite now fully satiated, his senses destroyed, and his bones scattered. End quote. These messages are clear. We cannot hide from death. Its embrace will consume our social existence entirely. Job titles, social position, material possessions, sexual roles, and images all must yield to death. This does not mean that we should abandon our material and social existence. Rather, it means that in consciously honoring the fact of our physical death, we are thereby empowered to penetrate through the social pretense, the ostentation, and the confusion that normally obscure our sense of what is truly significant. An awareness of death is an ally for infusing our lives with a sense of immediacy, perspective, and proportion. In acknowledging the reality of death, we can more fully appreciate the gift of life.